Welcome back to Hoochos. Today on Hoochos, we're going to be setting up, planting out, and time-lapsing this. This is a DIY flood and drain hydroponic system utilizing the UniFlood 3D printable single point flood and drain click connect adapter paired with an ice table, 100 litre reservoir and pump to provide nutrient solution to a grow bed containing hydrogen that you can utilize to grow plants hydroponically at home. Today we'll be setting up the UniFlood with the table that it was designed for, which is an ice table. If you're not familiar with the UniFlood, I did a whole video where I designed and 3D printed a single point flood and drain device so that you only have to drill one hole in whatever bed you want this system within. Here I have an ice table with the UniFlood installed. The UniFlood is just this 3D printable flood and drain device which has a quick connect adapter on the bottom and screws into place with a nut and is adjustable in flood height as well. And I'll put a link in the description to where you can purchase this table. To install this in the table, it's as simple as using the washer that comes with the table, put your UniFlood into place, screw up the nut, and it comes with multiple sizes of risers. So we can have the flood at this base level, which is about an inch, or we can raise it up a little bit. This is going to depend on how much media you have in each bed that this is placed within. I'm also going to be using a half-size spacer so that we can raise the flood and have it about an inch underneath the top of the media that we're going to put in here, which is hydrogen clay balls. For the reservoir, I'll be using this, I'm assuming it's a 44-gallon drum. I think it's about 200 litres, 160 litres. There you go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down to the table size. It's going to give me a 100-litre reservoir that I can just slide underneath. It's going to allow me to have the pump drain directly into the reservoir as well. Okay, so this res already has a pre-existing tap from a system that I had in the past. This was actually my original rain gutter grow system reservoir. I've cut my res down to size. We can slide it underneath our table like so. And I'm actually going to leave the front a little bit open so I can get in there and do maintenance. This is also going to allow me to drop the pump in and connect it to our quick connect fitting, which is underneath our UniFlood. For the pump, I've just got an AP 550 with some garden hose and a quick connect fitting at one end. So this will just be dumped straight into the reservoir and click directly to our UniFlood fitting. So I'm going to fill up the reservoir and we can run the system without media to give you an idea of how it looks, and then we can start putting the media into place. So just make sure you've got your reservoir where you want it, because it's going to be very hard to move when you've got 100 kilos of water in here. While that's filling, I want to talk to you about the light I'm using. So this is the MyGrow Array. This is an older version of the Array, but I love this light. It has performed flawlessly with all of the grows that I've used it for. Shout out to MyGrow for sending it to me all that time ago. It's the perfect form factor for this system. And I've just got that on an analog timer. That's how it's going to look above the system. So now that our res is filled up a bit, I'm going to run the pump. This pump will be on a smart socket so that I can control it in smaller increments than 15 minutes, because I only want it to flood up to the point where it's running back down into the reservoir. I'll time this and see how long it takes for the bed to flood and get to the drain point, and that's how long I want this system flooded for. As soon as it starts draining into the reservoir below, I want the system to turn off and immediately drain. We don't want those roots sitting in the nutrient solution for any longer than they have to be. This pump is like just powerful enough. This is the AP 550, so I'm saying I think that's 550 litres per hour. It's about to start draining. Well, it's 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and it's now draining back into the reservoir. And as you can see on the edges, we've got about an inch, which is good. I want it an inch underneath the media. So that is the half length riser that I've got in there. And we've got our pump returning water to the reservoir. So you can see it there coming out of the base of our uniflood. And it just follows the hose down into our reservoir. Okay, so I can turn my pump off now. I'll let it drain. It will drain back down through the holes where it came into the bed and through the pump. This is how we control the cycle. We turn the pump on and off to control the flood cycle. As the pump turns on, it pushes the water into the bed, and the overflow is really only there as a just in case it turns on and doesn't turn off. And then the pump can run continuously in that fashion and not overflow the bed. The return is actually through the pump itself. So the bed drains back down through the entry holes and through the pump, which is happening right now. So I'm gonna let this bed drain back down through that pump whilst I prepare the grow media, which is hydrogen clay balls. They look like this. They're just expanded clay aggregate, and they're light, they float on water. You may know them as LECA, and LECA stands for light expanded clay aggregate. These get extremely dusty in transport and we have to clean them. You saw that dust come off then. Yep. To clean them, I use a shopping basket. This was purchased from an op shop or a thrift shop, although a lot of the Australian viewers will recognize it. Just make sure you give them a real good wash. You don't want any of this going into your reservoir and messing with your pump. And once you're happy with how clean they are, they can go straight into the bed. And you know what? This has taken one 45 litre bag or 50 litre bag of expanded clay per ice table. It's a nice round figure. That is a bloody good looking hydroponic system. So I'm going to walk you through the entire process of mixing nutrients for this reservoir. We are going to pre-adjust our pH. Now, to know what your pH is going to be after the fact is something you'll have to figure out yourself based on your water and your hydroponic nutrient and how it affects your water. I know that I need to raise my pH by 1 factor, which means that I put 10 mils of my pH adjuster into 100 litres of water. Now, I am taking a guesstimate that this is 100 litres, so I'm going to put in 10 mils and stir that up. That is my pH taken care of, and now we can add in the nutrients. What I have here is I have roughly a litre of hot water, and I have 100 grams of both my Diamond Spec Tea, Campbell's Diamond Spec Tea, which is the nutrient I'll be using today. It's a tomato nutrient, and Campbell's Nitro Cal. 100 grams of each because it's 1 gram per litre of each for every litre of water, and it's 100 litres roughly of water. So I'm going to mix them both into hot water. So we're just going to mix these into our hot water, and the hot water just helps it dissolve. This ratio of nutrients should give me a flowering EC. It's going to be about 2.4 to 2.8 at a pH of between 5.5 and 6.5, pre-adjusted with my pH raised. I'm going to add in my calcium nitrate first. This depends on the nutrient you're using. It doesn't really matter for home growers. Don't get too bogged down into the details. You're going to have a good time either way. Calcium nitrate first for me, add that in, give it a stir, make sure that it's consistently through the reservoir, and then we can add in our other elements, which is our Campbell's Diamond Spec Tea. And I can mix that up as well. So I'm now going to test my pH and EC. This doesn't have to be done with an expensive pH and EC meter. You can get cheap pH pens online that work absolutely fine, or you can use pH test strips, and EC readers are also cheap to find online, and they require very little maintenance at all. If you don't like maintaining pH pens, get the strips and the EC readers will maintain themselves. Let's have a look, see how we've done. So first of all, pH. We're sitting at a pH of 6.3, which is fine. Between 5.5 and 6.5 is where we're aiming here. And our EC is 2.1. So a little bit lower than I was aiming for, but I think I haven't stirred it properly. 2.2. Now, what that tells me is this is probably a little bit more than 100 liters, which is absolutely fine. I'm gonna start it on this and I can always add more nutrient later. My nutrient tends to pull my pH down, which is good in this case because I have a little bit of wiggle room with that 6.2 pH. So if I add more nutrient, I can wiggle down to about 5.5. Now that our system is all set up, we can add in the plants. Now here I have Brussels sprouts actually. I've been eating a lot of Brussels sprouts and I've been wanting to grow them. So here we are. They've gone a bit further than this propagation tray will allow. So this is the perfect time to put them into a system. I'm just going to be pulling them out and you can see we've got a nice well-rooted seedling, and I'm just going to be planting them within our flood and drain table. So it looks like I can space evenly 5 on each side, which will give me a nice even distribution and keep the roots somewhat away from my drain point. I could have probably fit a few more in there, but I really didn't want to overcrowd it because once these get large, they're going to be quite large. All right, let's turn on the pump and set up the time-lapse cameras. And will you have a look at that result? Now I want to talk to you about light timing and pump frequency in a second, but first let's just take a moment to appreciate the size that these Brussels sprouts have grown to. That was a 3-month time lapse and we have a ton of sprouts coming off our Brussels sprout plants. Now, I'd actually never grown Brussels sprouts before and I was kind of unsure about how they would take to indoor growing, but they seem to be doing fine. Some of the sprouts sprouted before I could remove them. I was expecting them to get to a slightly larger size than they did. All in all, I'm actually quite happy with the result, even if this may not be the most practical system to grow them in without supports, and I have probably overcrowded the bed here just slightly. The nutrient solution I have changed 3 times and it is due for a change. Now it is empty, and that quick connect fitting has made it really easy to just reach under, disconnect the pump and slide the reservoir out and empty it, clean it, slide it back under, refill it. I've been letting the reservoir almost completely empty so it's easier to remove. Empty it, refill it with nutrient solution the same way that I did the first time. And if you're growing specific types of plants that perhaps need a flower nutrient, that would be the perfect time to change over from a grow to a flower. And I actually think this is perfectly suited to those flowering indoor species of plants. Hang on. This would fit incredibly well into a grow tent scenario. And you could even cut the legs off so that you could slide in a squatter reservoir so that you have more head height for your plants within a tent environment. There was absolutely no problem with the depth of the grow media, and I'll show you here. This is going to be super easy to clean. You can see here where our Brussels sprouts have fallen over and pulled the media up, but I'm just gonna try and show you. It's just the perfect depth for a bunch of roots. We'll pull this apart soon and I want to have a look around that flood and drain outlet. First, I want to talk to you about the light cycle. So the light cycle for this, that's a 19 on, 5 off cycle, which is weird. I don't know why I did 19 and not 18, but anyway, that's what it was. The pump schedule is every 3 hours, the pump would run for 5 minutes. That is just 24 hours and then repeats every day. That would charge the clay balls and the root area with nutrient that forces air out of the grow media. And then when it drains immediately, it doesn't sit in there for any amount of time. When it drains, the air is brought back into the grow media. This oxygenates the root zone and allows the roots to breathe. That is what we want to incorporate into any hydroponic system design. We want as much oxygen available to the roots as possible, whether it's in the form of air or whether it's dissolved oxygen within water. And I think this system does a good job of providing both, since you are aerating the reservoir every 3 hours when you're running the system. It makes me a little bit sad to just cut these down because it's taken a long time to grow these. I'll get a few Brussels sprouts off this. One was definitely hogging all the space. Doesn't look like it's going to clog at all. You can see here some of the roots are traveling back down into the entry points, but it definitely hasn't impeded the functioning of the device. Some people have actually asked me, with this flood and drain table, I actually didn't design one with a shroud that fits, but if you would like a shroud in addition to this design, let me know in the comments below and I can design this to have the shroud incorporated so that you can clear the roots around here without doing what I'm doing right now. The other style that fits onto any table with a hole in it, that's the version that I incorporated the shroud for. I'd be more than happy to make the addition of a shroud for this table. So let's pull back the balls and I'll give you a look at the roots. It's like a mat. Have a look at that. Look at those roots. That is incredible. The healthiest roots. Holy, that's incredible. I can pretty much lift all of these clay balls just directly up. That is the sign of a well-functioning flood and drain. There is no sign of oxygen deprivation. There's no sign of stagnant water. This is ideal. You can't even see the clay balls. It's just a mat of roots. Look at that. What a fantastic result. And with that, I'm gonna leave you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hoochos as much as I enjoyed making it. Happy hydroponicking, and I'll see you next time on Hoochos. Now is the real hard part, reclaiming the clay balls. I will save you the trouble of watching that.
I see through the bricks to the sea, crumbling castle, inching closer each century, crumbling castle.